Here are 4 main things to consider when selecting a pair of inline skates. Alright, so the first thing to consider, of course, is the price. Inline skates don't have to be extremely expensive to be good. You can get a pair of cheap inline skates which are just as good as the world branded and more expensive ones out there. So, for example, I bought this K2 inline skates for about 270 euros, and that was when I started skate last year. And I was thinking, I need to buy really expensive skates to be able to have the best experience ever. And I can tell you that after a year, I bought this cheaper skate for about 100 euros. That's over half of the price, and I've had a better experience skating with this than this, I should say. And there are several factors to consider over here. I'm going to break it down more into details in this video. So the next thing I'm going to talk about here is the wheel size. Which wheel size do you need? There are several wheel sizes out there, but I'm just going to break it down into 2 different wheel size categories. So bigger wheels and smaller wheels. You need to know the differences between these wheels, and this will help you to select which type of skate actually fits your needs. So the first factor over here is shock absorption. These bigger wheels absorb much more shocks than the smaller wheels. For skating on rough surfaces, for example, these bigger wheels are a better option because then they are able to absorb much more shock. That is, you don't really feel the pain in your leg, because if you're going over a really rough surface, you kind of feel the vibration, and this absorbs it a lot better, and you don't really feel it a lot more compared to these smaller wheels. You kind of feel it and they become a bit more unstable, and there are cracks. You can sometimes maybe even fall on these smaller wheels compared to these bigger wheels, because they kind of cover a bigger surface area, and then they can be able to go over the cracks or anything that you have on the ground. The next thing over here is speed. Take a look at these 2 wheels. This bigger wheel has a bigger surface area and therefore can cover a lot more ground compared to this smaller wheel. So when it comes to speed, the bigger wheels win. So if you are focusing more on speed, then you should go for a bigger wheel, because that will give you more speed. The next thing over here is maneuverability. That is your ability to be able to move your skate or be able to turn quite effectively. And considering these 2, these smaller wheels win this category over here, because it is extremely easy to turn on smaller wheels compared to bigger wheels. The next thing is stopping. To stop on wheels, I can tell you that these smaller wheels are much better for stopping compared to these, because if you're doing something like a power stop, you need your wheels to bend a bit more, and these smaller wheels can bend slightly better than these, because you need to bend a lot more if you're not comfortable skating at the outside edges of your skate or the inside edges of your wheels. Then it's going to be a bigger problem. So to be able to do much more stops, or to stop a lot easily, these smaller wheels take this category. So they're better at stopping than the bigger wheels. The next factor to consider is the weight on your legs. These bigger wheels are much more heavier compared to the smaller wheels, of course. So as a beginner, it might not be a really good choice for you, because you're unable to turn properly. It's a lot heavier on your leg. You're unable to do a lot of jumps and so on. So going for these smaller wheels might be a better option, because they are much more light, and you can be able to, jump around and move around more freely with these smaller wheels compared to these bigger wheels. Well, generally, the next thing over here is wheel hardness. But I'm not going to really talk about the wheel hardness. So we have different types of wheel hardness depending on the surface that you want to really skate on. If you want to skate maybe outside, you might maybe go for like a harder wheel or something. But I'm not really going to go into details, because I need to check the table myself. But I'm going to maybe drop a link or something. You can go to Google and just type wheel hardness for inline skates, and you find the different explanations on which type of wheel hardness to use. So mostly this is a softer wheel, for example, and this is a harder wheel. So if I use this outside, it's a lot better, and this for inline or indoor skating is much better using the softer wheel, I think. Just check it out to be more sure. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the boot type. You see, we have 2 different types of boot over here. I don't know if you can tell the difference. This is a soft boot, and this is a hard boot. What's the difference between a soft boot and a hard boot? With a hard boot, you are able to take the inner lining out. So it's a lot easier to maintain the hard boot compared to the soft boot, because everything is kind of compact. You cannot take anything out, and it's just one whole boot. And being able to clean this is a whole different experience on its own. I had a really hard time cleaning this and maintaining this compared to this, because when I just skate after a long day of skating and sweating on my feet, I just take this out, dry it out, and then the next day it is fresh for skating again. But with this, I had to, use a towel and put it in some soap, and then clean it inside, and then dry it outside, open it like this. It is a bit more stressful, I must confess. So that's the main difference between a soft boot and a hard boot. So generally, I'll go for a hard boot because I prefer the whole appearance over here, and it's also a lot better, I think, to kind of configure. I would say is the configuration, maybe checking for your screws and all this kind of stuff is a lot more easier, because for the hard boot everything is almost always fixed. It's like there are almost no screws. And for example, I lost this particular thing over here that supports it. That is why I even changed the boot in the first place, because then I couldn't find a replacement for it. I contacted the support team of K2 and they sent me no replacement. I couldn't find anything online as well. So I had to replace the entire boot for a hard boot. It's a lot easier because there are more screws that you're able to, change and buy easily on the market. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the boot fit. Make sure to get an inline skate which is actually the right fit. Don't get something that is too small or too big, because if you get something that is too small, you're going to have a really hard experience skating, because it's going to be really tight on your legs, and then you maybe have a really good experience in the first few moments. It's going to be really stable and all, but then after some time your legs are going to hurt really, really bad. So make sure you get something that is quite your size, and don't get something that is too big also, because when it's too big it is a lot more unstable. It's like your legs are just floating inside, and it's just going to be a really bad experience. You're not going to have a really good experience. You're going to fall a lot. So make sure you have something that is quite your size. And yeah, one more important thing also is a really huge debate between 4 wheels and 3 wheels. Which one should you go for? I'll just reserve the details of the differences between the 3-wheel setup and the 4-wheel setup for another video. So if you want to see that video, type wheels in the comments and I will tag you in that video when it is up. Like and follow for more.